Okay, so welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. If you are joining from outside Nigeria, thank you for making the time. By way of introduction, my name is Olamide Aluko, and I work as a policy analyst at Tech Advisory, and I will be moderating today's edition. Like I pointed out, this session is the third IF Point, and a little background story, right? IF Point is a monthly knowledge sharing session where we invite experts to come and discuss about contemporary issues at the intersection of technology, business, society, governance. Our first edition was about compliance and fraud detection in Nigeria. Our second edition was about AI governance. And today's topic is focused more about digital experience, right? Or digital user experience. And thank you once again. Joining us on this call, we have three amazing professionals. I can see Mr. Samuel. Thank you, everyone. You joined already. I can see Rachel. So I will leave the speakers to introduce themselves, starting from Mr. Samuel Obadino. If I'm correct with that pronunciation of the Obadino.
Absolutely. Can you hear me clearly?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Good morning.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Samuel. I'm a designer. Currently, I'm a product designer at Rich PLC London, where I lead design system. So Rich, for context, is a publisher, the largest in the UK and in Ireland itself. And what we do is get the latest news out there really quickly, and we're across several regions in the UK. Yeah, so that is why I lead design system, meaning that I see to consistency across almost about 100 sites across all our publications to see that users get the news they need at the right time and clearly and easy for them to digest. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Thank you.
For the good work. Richard, next to you.
Thank you, Kwasi. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel, and I'm a creative designer. I work full-time at the Hive, and you always find me in any intersection of creativity, strategy, and communications. So I wear the art of doing designs day and night, and you would always find me in places where we talk about designs. And today, I'm so excited about this topic because it's an opportunity to share our experiences and how we can thrive in this space.
Thank you, Rachel. And the last panelist, Ridwan.
Yeah.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Kwasi. Can you confirm if you hear me, please?
Very well. Yeah, you're clear enough.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ridwan. I'm no designer. I can't even design to save my own life. But I've done quite a number of projects around policy, where I've actually had to leverage design visualization to tell stories, to dummy things down for my audience, or just to create interactive dashboards so people can make actual meaningful sense of policy and different things and how it affects them. So I currently lead the emerging technologies and the technology policy team at Tech Advisory. There I do quite a number of things, and the last 6 years I've done quite a number of work around deceptive design from a policy point of view. And also I've done quite a number of research, foundational research pretty much from an African perspective on deceptive design. And in 2023 I also did a long essay on deceptive design, looking at the digital lending ecosystem in Nigeria. So it's a pleasure to be able to talk about this topic that I've been part of for the longest time. So excited to share this conversation and the insights.
Thank you, Ridwan. For everybody, Ridwan is my boss, right? He pays my salary. So thank you for doing that. So let's set the stage for today's discussion, right? We are focusing on deceptive design and consumer protection. I mean, we all have interacted with different designs through the use of internet, right? Some designs are helpful, they guide you, and some are manipulative. So the center of our discussion today is about the manipulative designs, right? For example, you want to engage, you want to use a product or a service online, and you ask, okay, it's a free trial for a month, good, but you have to input your card details and that is very fine. Where the issue lies now is when you can cancel, when it's very hard to cancel. Now you engage with the 1 month trial, but you can't cancel again. Is that for you to cancel? You have to message the customer support. Oh, I don't want to do it again. How can I do this? These are the examples of deceptive design. And these are more will be the art of our conversation today, understanding what deceptive design is, how it appears in a digital platform, examining the ethical implication these designs have on our user autonomy, and assessing the real world impact, right? So, housekeeping notes, right? Audience will be allowed to ask questions at the end of the session. Please make use of the Q&A section or box. So we will take the question in or at the end of the section. So you won't forget, just type it out there. It promises to be engaging. So sit back, relax. Our panelists, our analysts will, of course, break it down for us. Deceptive design and consumer attention. Also, please, if you know that your friend needs to be on this call, please nudge them to join already as we are starting out. Also, let's go to the basics, right? Let's join ourselves in the basics. And this question is for the panelists, right? I will start with Mr. Samuel first, then Rachel, and Ridwan can give us a broader societal and consumer context, right? So the basics is many people have encountered deceptive design without even knowing it. Me, example too, I may have, of course, I would have encountered it so many times, but I do not notice that these are deceptive designs. So what are deceptive designs? How do they typically appear in everyday digital experiences? And can you tell us some subtle forms that are not noticeable, but they are deceptive designs? So Mr. Samuel, over to you first.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll just break it down. When you say deceptive design, first, deception is getting people to believe something that is not true. So that's the basic definition. And most times that is geared towards personal gain. So when someone is luring you to get something for personal gain, then you're crossing the line of deception there. And the second word there is design. And in basic form, just say design is communication. So if you combine that word together, it's communicating in a deceptive way. That's communicating something that is not actually true in a way to lure the user to take an action that you understand the motive behind it and the motive is not clear. So that's in that simple definition, that's deceptive design. And this is something you see in different, even in your physical product, there are products you buy and you get and you realize it's not true. And you see it also in marketing techniques, even in the common marketplace where they tell you sit down and you get a shoe, you're not standing up because until when you get to, you now realize that shoe is not really your size. You know all of these things you experience every day. So it's easy to say deceptive design is just in digital, but it's everywhere. Anything that is intended to lure you to take an action where the intent of the action is not solely in your control. Then start talking about design. I'll just talk about very few examples you see it in digital platform, which is one of the key things we're talking about today. It can be in bank apps when hidden charges are not clearly displayed to you. You can see it in e-commerce site where things are pre-selected and you're wondering why. And one way you see it in flight sometimes is when you go to the past details and you see an information before you move to after filling those details, before you move to the next detail, you see the prices has increased and you can't really understand how do we get to this point. And yeah, I think we're going to delve deeper into that in the conversation, but that's the summary. Decisions that you take that is not within your control, that the intent is majorly controlled by the designer of that decision. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. So Rachel, please quick one, then read one.
All right. So as Mr. Samuel said, these are for me, I would say deceptive designs, they are design tricks that nudge users into doing what they don't want to do when things are not clearly stated, or when things are clearly stated. So you tend to do what you are not expected to do. So Mr. Sam also gave some examples. I'll also say this. For instance, you're about to sign up for a service online, and you are able to like sign in easily, but at the end of the day, you find it difficult to opt out, or you find it difficult to cancel. A lot of people see these things online, and they don't know that they are deceptive designs. And again, as humans, we have find a way to actually live with these things, because let's say you subscribe for something online, you started a trial, and you have like a particular amount to be paid for, but you are unable to, like, you did not know, you did not get any reminder. That is another example of deceptive design. You didn't get a reminder as to, oh, this is time for you to pay, and you end up paying for that because it is not. So this example tells us that it erodes the user's trust, and you are unable to like make your own decision. It takes away the user's autonomy. So that's just what I would like to add to that.
Thank you, Richard. That's spot on. Ridwan, give us the broader context on societal and consumer.
I mean, Sam and Rachel has done an incredible job, giving setting the background to give us some examples. They are the one who designed these platforms and these interfaces. I mean, not the deceptive ones. Well, I mean, they have like more operational perspective, but essentially, what work has looked at in the last few years is just to understand how something you call nudging, which is basically to encourage people to do certain things. And how you see it from a societal perspective is that when there's like a whole model being built on ability to nudge to make decisions that are favorable to who is putting it there, not necessarily in the interest of a person who wants to make the decision. And it's in simple things, simple cues, bright colors, framing, also using some sort of social pressure to exert or to make people do things. So I'll give some examples from that I've documented in the last 6 years from some of the work that I've done. So for example, one of the earliest examples you typically see, and that's very prevalent within the African ecosystem, is if, for example, you were to do anything, whether in the hospitality sector, whether you're booking a flight or whether you're booking a hotel room. And when you check, you keep seeing something that says 4 more seats available, 2 more rooms available, or 55 people have looked at the same room. So what that does is nudge you into urgency. Urgency then makes you make decisions. You end up paying because you don't want to miss out on what looks like a good offer. But in the technical sense, there might actually be more seats available. It's like when you go to the park in Ibadan, for those who grew up in Ibadan, and the way the drivers will have people sit in the car before you get there, and then they tell you just one more passenger. And once you get in, you see them walk out. So now they have to still complete. So it's just pretty much like that, which is again nudging you to make the decision that it's kind of like favorable to them and not you. There are also situations where you see bright colors. Bright colors, basically the one that takes away choice, that takes away autonomy, that takes away the power that you should have in brighter colors. And then sometimes what is not so favorable to you are then in not so bright colors. I think another example is also what we call false registration. And these are both data protection, consumer protection, competition, product safety, consideration, and even you can stretch the argument to say it's also a broader right, human rights issues. So false registration compels you, give you some long documents to look at. And it's either you agree or you don't agree. It leaves you with literally no choice. Another thing is also how information can sometimes be deceptive, which misrepresent what the products can do, the capability of the products, to the point where you basically just go on with it. Another one is also confirmation. So in the research that I did in 2023, one of the things you saw within the digital lending ecosystem, for example, is you're about to take a loan, and then you see a framing that reads something like, don't give up, fill in more information and you'll get the money. Then it gives you 2 options. The one in the bright color says continue to apply. The one in the very dull color that looks like every other part of the website says give up. So in a way, if you have poor self-esteem or you don't know what you're doing, you may see you give up as an insult to say, no, I'm not going to give up. Now we'll give up for cup. I mean, as people say. So there are also things where you have like, and I'm sure we're probably going to get into more of these examples, but I'm saying background I'm giving essentially, and me being asked to talk about how this impacts consumer is first takes away people autonomy. It makes people pay way more than they want to pay for value. And it also erodes the concept of choice for people because now people don't know what to do. And you also have a situation where you could have that the pressure of social proof, where you see things like borrow with confidence, borrow and repay, better quality of life awaits you. And basically all of these things prompt people to take on more things. Costs are hidden in such a way that you have zero idea you're paying for more than you should be paying. So essentially, this is like some of the issues that we have. But on a wider issue, and I'm going to keep quiet, is how it also misrepresent the quality of products. Out this financial services sector, mostly financial burden and debt on people. You can also have a situation where it could be some warranted data sharing. And finally, it also makes it very difficult to actually to assess actual services. So these are like some of the issues, and I guess we're going to have more time to talk about some of these issues later on.
Thank you, Ridwan. That was very broad because you talked about digital lending, e-commerce, marketing strategy, flights. You mentioned flights, booking, and even I think you mentioned about you have where I stay, Ibadan, right? How they do their own deception about traveling and all. So you mentioned something. You mentioned something around design, right? About bright colors, dark colors. So this next question is for Rachel. So how does this deceptive design, how do they work so effectively on our autonomy, right? How do they work so well? Because we don't know, we just do it. We just want to accept, we just want to agree. So we don't mention colors. How do colors, grading, shapings affect our attention or capture our attention? Rachel, this is for you, please.
Okay, so I would start from that color aspect. When you want to accept something, you see something online and you want to accept, the accept button is very bold and you can see the color, but you cannot reject. You can't find the reject button, or it's just written in a fine print, very small, and you are unable to see it. That is where the color aspect comes in. So how do deceptive designs, how do they play on our intelligence? This is it. As humans, we tend to quickly skim through things. We skim through things. We love the shortcuts. And most times when things are already pre-ticked online, we just end up picking that without reading the whole information, more like, okay, this is what I have to pick. And designers and app or websites, they make use of this particular thing to just make sure that, okay, when it is pre-ticked, the next thing you just do is you just tick it. You don't try to look for another way out. You don't try to look for another option out. So you just go ahead. And sometimes it may cost you your money, or it may cost you your decision making because you just went ahead with what you saw. You did not have any you didn't have any point to say. Another thing I would give as an example in this point is I was going online one day. So this person was trying to sell marketing that you need in for your marketing business. Then the next thing is for you to accept. So it's either you accept, and the next thing is the use of negative words. So instead of just saying yes or no, you find yes or no, thanks, I don't need your services. So he guilt trip you to say, and so I would just call it classic gaslighting. So he guilt trips you to say, oh, I need this person's business. Whereas that means it's not giving you the time to think about it if you actually need it, if it's something you need at that particular time or you need it some other time. Another example that even happened to me particularly is I wanted to use a logistics service. So I needed to send a particular product, it's an equipment, and it's quite expensive. So I saw the price and okay, it was good. But payout, I saw that I had to pay for insurance. If I don't pay for insurance, I'm at risk of a lot of things. I started feeling like, okay, if this thing should actually break and it's actually a lot of money, but honestly, I didn't have a choice at that particular time. So I just had to like pay for it. So these are the ways that deceptive designs can actually trick humans into doing what they don't want to do.
I like the way you use. You made mention about gaslighting, right? We are very familiar with kind of that's manipulative. Would Mr. Samet like to chime in this, how deceptive design works so effectively on human psychology?
Yeah, I think Mitchell made a very good point there. And I will talk from the aspect of how the brain works and how design leverage on that to get attention. As in my earlier definition, I said design is about communicating. So I know in communication is a two-way. There is the speaker and there's also the receiver. And even in normal communication, there's a way you communicate to someone that it's easy for the person to receive, and there's a way you communicate that the person can just create a barrier and you can't really communicate effectively. So how does design come in this place? So I spent about 4 or 5 years teaching designs at the early stage, fundamental designs. And some of the first classes I take are always in the principle of design. I talk about element of design, principle of design. And in the principle of design, we teach designers how to get attention. Because we're in a world where there's a lot of people trying to get your attention. So how do you get attention? Even I've done a lot of brand identity design and also brand strategy for a long time too. I still do that currently. And some of the things we do is how do we position this brand to get attention? So that means we're in a attention giving and craving world where everyone is trying to get attention. So in that part of getting attention, the person who is suffering is also the person receiving the attention. Which one should I pay attention to? So what I'm trying to get into is how do we use element of design, or why does these designs or these things get us? Is because as humans, we react to something, we react emotionally to a lot of things before we even think about logical sense of it. And every brand, every information has been designed to get that human side of us. Like in feeding, I'll explain this, when you're looking at brands that are in the food industry, like eatery, you see they use more of red, a vibrant red, and it's not just because it's like that way. That color itself, it gets you to salivate, like the vibrant red, it gets you to salivate, it gets you to take action, it gives you a sense of speed. So without saying anything, that color or that brand is already exhibiting a sort of reaction on the human. You pass by those brands and just have that sense of, you can get to some of this, you feel calm, or in a space, let me talk about space. You get to a space, you feel calm without anything, just by changing the color of the room, just by changing the color of the environment, and that changes us. So what I'm saying is that brand have explored everything that reacts to human, and human will react to informations, and those informations can be as basic as color, as text, as information, or all of those things. When someone sends a message to you with a small letter and sends it in full capital letter and bold, you react absolutely differently to it. So that's how we humans just react to things, and that is where deception design also leverage on those things. They use things like color to call your attention. They use things like text to call your attention, and they also use, and there's something really very key even in the design in the digital world, which is motion. If everything on the page is static and something moves, it will automatically get your attention, even though you have 1,000 things on the screen. Why? Because that just looks off. Even as simple as tilting something, if everything is all organized and something tilts, it gets your attention. It's just like when we're in school, when everyone is all, if you stood at the top of the assembly line before to look at everybody lined up, if everybody is lined up, you wonder how can you distinguish that person that just changes position? You're like, read one, or this person go back. Sorry, not read one. I don't mean read one. Like someone else. Why are you not in position? So that is just our way our brain is being designed to, on some basic things like organization, things like color, and all of those color we get them from society, from our natural being. Like fire is about fire red, it gives that sense of attention, urgency. That's why it's used in some of those brands. Things like green and all of these colors gives you this sense of calm. The blue, which is the sky, gives you a sense of calm. That's why it's used in professional setting. And you have some terms like that's some of the ways, without going so deep. That's some of the ways we get our reaction to all of this information. So in summary, humans, the way our environment is designed already structures us to react and interpret some things. So when those things are put into design, we automatically just react to that. So is then how companies or designers pay attention to that, either to pass an information or to also deceive them. So we just react to all of those things, and people or designers can use that to get people attention or to get them to take an action. It's just determining what those actions are at the end of the day.
That sounds like a lot that we are in it, right? Because we react, of course, we are reactionary to things, colors, text, like you mentioned, a tweak in an organized thing will catch your attention. So you mentioned something about principles of design, right? You said you teach about gaining attention. One of your principles when you're designing service, gain people attention, scale your product, marketing strategy, right? Some people say, oh, this design we are doing is for marketing. So that's our own justification. So now, Ridwan, I want to ask, the design team are talking about principles that guide their processes, about they want to scale their product, they want to gain attention. Now, we have principle of data protection, right? We're talking about transparency and fairness. And these deceptive designs cut across misleading people, basically not being transparent, it's just deceptive, as the name implies. So what is the connection between, or disparity between, the principles about gaining attention, product scalability, marketing strategy, and the principle of data protection that negates fairness and transparency in this context? Really one.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned quite a number of principles. Fairness on one side, because fairness essentially saying make sure there is no risk, there is no damage, there is no harm to people. With design choices, you can actually have harm to people. If someone doesn't want to take a loan or doesn't want to take a loan above certain threshold, or wants to take a loan believing they're taking a certain amount of money, and then with hidden cost, they end up getting more. They end up getting more loans than they want with really terrible interest rates, and basically sends them into penury, which is pretty much what happens in the digital lending ecosystem. That's fairness being violated. We also think about rules around transparency. If, for example, if you look at the Google Play Store, Apple Store, App Store, for example, one of the key rules of hosting your apps there is that you must have the option for people to delete. If you collect personal data, whether you allow people sign in somewhere, then people within the app itself, people must be able to delete their data or delete their account at least. If you misrepresent this capability and don't give people that option, it also becomes like a whole transparency issue. Or even if, for example, you're not telling the entire story about what you're doing, you're concealing information, that's also like a violation of transparency. But outside of that, you also have a way in which you can violate pretty much principles like purpose limitation, data minimization, to the extent that you make people give more data than they want to give. Whether it's collecting location data, misrepresenting it like you actually need it for the app to work, or whether it's you making people make more choices within the app, which because you already have software development kits embedded within the app that is strictly for tracking behavioral profiling, and people have zero idea about what they're doing. But you make them give more information because they have to interact more with the app. Now you know what they like, you know what their preferences are, you know what they're spending time on. And you can go even to the extent that your profiling doesn't stop within their use of the app. You also extend outside the app environment itself. But you misrepresented what that thing is doing, or you're not even saying entirely what it is. So you also, to that extent, violate. But like I said, it's not just solely a data protection problem. These days, when we look at the conversation more broadly, it's also a product safety problem. If you're making me do things that I don't want to do, with your product, and then it goes into the heart of the fact that the product can't even do the things you say. And now with AI, you're pretty much seeing this, becoming more prevalent. People wake up someday, say they have the best AI tool that can do whatever it is. But the reality versus the functionality of what the tool can actually do, is a whole disconnect. But you sold to people on the promise that you can do something that you can't do. It's deception in a way, whether you do it through design, whether you do it through active words. So it's not just that, it's also a consumer protection issue, because if you look at pretty much principles of consumer protection, under the consumer protection laws, even if you look at the financial ecosystem as well, a lot of central banks in Africa have consumer protection guidelines and responsible business conduct framework, which also expects that businesses must behave responsibly. So we're seeing where, for example, consumer protection says don't misrepresent, don't perpetuate fraud, don't be transparent with information, which means let people see things as they are. And also, if, for example, you know people's preferences, which means maybe consent or permission to do certain things, then you sneak it in such a way that you either harass them or you use like element of social proof on them, where you're literally bullying them, as Rachel put it, classic gaslight, into making people do things because of the way you frame certain things. Then all of this becomes not just a data protection problem, it also becomes a responsible business framework problem, it becomes a consumer protection problem, and by extension, it will also be like a product safety problem. So, and what this does is, again, you see, for example, people don't have informed consent in that sense, because they actually don't even, it looks like consent, but it's not consent. So they're signing away what they don't know. Because if you even look at the threshold for to meet what the law requires of what consent should look like, but also transparency being thrown out of the window, that largely on vacation. And then another issue we then look at, which is also very salient and not so big on the side of the level of where the conversation really at this side of the world, is even with things like advertisements. Within apps, we see ads these days. You're watching videos, you see ads. So we're basically being, it's like a whole attention ecosystem. And everything is being shown at us from different point of view. And you have to interact with this some, except maybe like some of us who like still manage to maybe deal with some of these things because we use privacy preserving tools where we block third-party requests, we block third-party cookies, we block ads pretty much. So people can make inferences from what you're doing to an extent. So essentially these are like some of the issues. I'll definitely get an opportunity to shine light on some of the broader societal issues and also some of the things that we've also found in research that we've done, especially within the financial ecosystem. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Riva. So now, how do we distinguish between legitimate designs and deceptive designs, right? Because as users, as digital users, we just want to get things done and get it over with. We don't have that, we have that short attention span that, I have to like be curious, be diligent about what I'm looking at, diligent about what I'm signing on. So how do we like easily spot, or can we distinguish between legitimate designs and deceptive designs? For example, now, top down, countdown time you use during e-commerce. You want to get a product, they will tell you, this product will be available. It's just 2 products that is available and it will be off the market in the next 2 days. You are put on your toes already that, okay, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. Then later on, maybe you don't even know. You just bought your order already and you move on with your life. But actually, the countdown was deceptive. So how do you distinguish between, at the initial stage, how do you distinguish between this deceptive design and legitimate designs? Mr. Samuel, can you answer that?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So is it as a user or as you're talking from a user perspective, right?
Both from the user
Yeah,
and the design perspective, yes.
Obviously, okay. So from a user perspective, obviously, every time you see a design that is getting attention, everything what we want to be sure about is that there's not something give you a sense of urgency. When something is giving you that sense of quick agency, do it now. Even that's also what scammers also use. If you go through most scamming methods, you see that what they use is a sense of urgency. Do it now. Act on this now. If you don't act on it, you're going to miss on this forever. And obviously, even from a personal standpoint, I've always found out that deals always come and deals always go, and deals will always come back. So when I walk to a store and they tell you, oh, if you don't make this thing now, you're going to lose it. And most times I always come back to that same store and the deals always keep going. In fact, you can even get better deals. So if from a personal standpoint, you understand the fact that when something is giving you that sense of urgency, you want to ask, do you really need that? If you don't need that, then I think it's just straight on to know that I'm happy to get this at the time I want to get this, because I believe that getting something you need for even a higher price, or getting something you don't need for a discount, is better for you to get it at when you need it than when you don't need it. Because most of the time, all those designs are just to give you that sense of you need this now, and most times we really don't need it. From a design perspective, every time we're designing, I think the call is always on us to check that, is this just for personal gain? Is this for the business gain, or does this help the user? Obviously, if you create a sense of urgency for someone who needs something, that works. Like all of those things we see on it, which is two people are viewing this. This is going to be off in so time. It makes sense if two people are really seeing it, but now when you inspect some site, you notice that some of those numbers are just random numbers. They're not. There's no API feeding them. There's no actual data feeding those things. That just random number to get people. So at that level, from a design point, that's obvious that that's just to get the user, and there's no actual benefit for the user at that point in time. But if those numbers and those things are true, and is majorly to get the user to take action when they need to take action, yeah, that's right. But when the aim is just to draw the attention of the user to take action, and those things are not actually true, that's when we start having problem with the design, because that's becoming deceptive itself. Because when you look at two people, someone who needs to take an action, and someone who needs something, and someone who doesn't need something, what you always find out that the person who needs that thing, no matter what the case of the scenario is going to get it. It's just, where is he going to get it? But when you then trick people who really don't need it to get things, that's when you are getting into that line of deception itself. So in summary, to summarize it, is that from a user perspective, obviously, you're going to come across different things that need your attention, different things that need you to get something now. Always check with the sense of urgency. If there is so more emphasis on urgency than actually the product, then actually allowing to see the details of what does this thing cover, and it's just all around the urgency to get it now, then it shows that it's more for them and less about you. And from a product perspective, as a product designer, what I always encourage is that when product marketing are coming with their request, why we call this user stories, because it should be about the user and not first about the business. So we should always look from the standpoint of what is the user supposed to gain here. Obviously, there are two benefits here. There's the user benefit, there's also the business benefit. But you get the business benefit when you first solve the user benefit. So every time there's always a request, the question, or where product designers, where developers, everyone should come in, is that what is the user benefit here? And for a developer, what you're asking is that, are we using the right, where is the data coming from? And this data has to be genuine data, not just random data you will just proof off using basic script that is just to get the user, and they're not actually data. Yeah, that's how I think we can make decisions when all of these things come that way, so we don't fall for them.
Thank you so much. You mentioned something very important. First is the urgency thing you mentioned, and that is very important because that's the way cyber attacks happens to, right? They pick on your your emotional sense. Okay, do this urgently, do this social engineering, phishing, and others. Yeah, that's how they work. So thank you for that. Also, you spoke about responsibility as designers, product designer, and okay, you have to make self-determination yourself. Okay, how can I balance the user experience with the product scalability? Okay, business objective itself. So, Rachel, I'm going to ask you. So, because we have creative designers that are freelancers, right? Just give me work, do it, and they go. So, how can you reason with the business objective here, and at the same time thinking about user experience? Right? I just want to get the work done and get my money. So, what is the responsibility, or is there a guiding principle for all designers that okay, this is how I'm supposed to do, this is the way I'm supposed to work? So, Rachel, is there any guiding principle that in your work, like, okay, I shouldn't do this, I should do this, or it's just let me get things done and get paid?
Okay, so I'll start like this. In this aspect, the key to whether the key is to whether the design request respects the user autonomy or you exploit it. So when you want to like design, you should have it in mind. There is a line between having a design that is persuasive and the one that manipulates, which brings us back to the deceptive design that we are discussing. So first, persuasion guides, it encourages and it also informs, while deceptive is definitely, manipulative is just like the opposite of guiding and informing. So it pressures, it hides core information, and also deceives the user into doing what they don't want to do. So I'll use example. I'll start with first. There's an intent and benefits that the business is saying this is what we want. So when someone is designing now, you need to nudge the user towards a choice that will benefit the user, because the user is who we have in mind, and that is why we are creating it. Even though there's the business aspect of it that wants to make money off of it. So, but as a designer, you need to stick to a kind of business, a kind of design that helps both the user and helps the business. Let me use this example. So I will use a fitness app as an example that tells you that, oh, you're already going on a 5-day streak, just reminding you to keep up with your goals. That is the design that has shown that, okay, a user can continue with their goals. But if it's the manipulative aspect of it, this same fitness app will just lead you to sign up and to continue your subscription, rather than telling you what your streak is about, what your goal is about. They just tell you so they get their own money off of it. Another thing is transparency. For a persuasive design, the content is like upfront. Like if you order in the next 10 minutes, you will get 10% off. But when it comes to manipulative design, they will tell you only one left. Whereas if you come back the next day, you will still find that one left there. So that is their own part of making sure that it is their business that they put upfront. Another aspect of it I would mention is control. You should leave the user to be able to, they should have a control, they should have a feeling of control towards the action that they want to pick. So if it should be clearly stated, okay, it's a yes or it's a no. So you are designing clearly for them to see. But if it's a manipulative one, I mean, that's when you start having confusion. That's where there will be guilt of, oh, if I don't do it now, you start feeling some kind of guilt. So it affects the user and you are no longer putting the user in plan. And finally, I would say that there's also a short-term and long-term thing to this design that you are working on. For the short-term one, people will just come. I mean, you have done a design for basically the clicks and the few conversions that you will get at that period. But if you have the user in mind and there's a long-term planning to it, you have created a kind of trust, a honesty for the user to always come back. They've trusted you, they trust your business. It helps your business to grow more. So they continue to come back over and over again. And it's not just that because of the click. Because at the end of the day, you get a few clicks and after some while, when it's no longer working, when your lights are no longer working, when your lights are no longer working, it just waters down your business. And finally, I will give an example again for clothes, a clothing line. Say they want to sell to you. They tell you, or they for a design aspect, you can decide to say, we are bringing all the genuine clothes, like let's say top 20 clothes that people in this area have been buying. And it's possible to say, oh, people have been buying this. That would mean that this is what is in trend. Then you have persuaded the user that is using your app or that wants to buy your business into saying that this is, so I'm definitely going for this. But when you now put a countdown, you mentioned countdown earlier, this is where it actually comes in. So when the countdown can affect the way a user thinks, and it nudges you to buy it when you are not actually ready to buy at that particular time. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much for those copious examples. So moving on from the responsibility point of view, this question is for Ridwan. So looking at the governance perspective, right? Are there existing laws, regulations, standards, or codes that guide these designers in what they are supposed to do? You mentioned FCCPA the other time about financial sector, about the marketing, e-commerce sector, that, okay, if you are displaying your product, put your price online, make it transparent and what's some. But I want you to go more deep into any existing law or regulation that guides this design, and most especially deceptive design. Read one.
All right, I'm going to speak more broadly because I have a large representation from different parts of the continent. So what I'll say definitely is, deceptive design touches on many issues. Many of the issues it touches on are also domains that are regulated by different laws. In the past, pretty much with any problem that comes, or technological-related problems, people have made an argument for having, again, deceptive design specific law, which, as someone who teaches regulation and policy, I'm not a big fan of whether you're making regulation a focus of technology or regulation a focus of the problem, especially if you come from an ecosystem where there are vertical laws that sort of deal with the problem in different ways. So, from a privacy point of view, there's like data protection.
So your voice is a little bit muffled.
Oh, sorry, network. I'm at the airport actually, so that might also be interfering. So, there's data protection law that talks about principles, and some of these principles, some of these obligations it creates, sort of touches on some of the things that deceptive design violates in different ways. So, if, for example, you don't tell people entirely how much something costs, that's against responsible business regulation under so many central boards laws. It's also a violation of consumer protection law. If what you do is use your design to take away choice from people, whether through your cookie nudge, for example, where all you have is just accept. Someone gave an example, I think Noah gave an example in the chat, talks about how some cookie banners gives you an option of accept all and cookie settings. But when you go to the cookie settings, there are really no choices. And you can't proceed if you don't accept. So that's a violation of data protection law. But there are more examples of data protection principles or obligations also given. Another one is also manipulated into providing consent for things. So again, that's also a violation of data protection law. So data protection law, regardless of the African country, sort of deal with some aspect of these problems. You just need to map the problems to be responsible from them. Like I said, there's also like consumer protection on one side, where again, consumer protection laws are very pro-user, pro-consumer. So whether it's telling you about fairness, whether it's telling you, perpetuation of misrepresentation, misrepresentation of quality of services, and also maybe transparency, which is put out information so people can see it. So you also have this violation, and it's again a violation of this consumer protection law. But you also have central banks generally who typically also has what is called responsible business conduct framework. Sometimes things like credit reporting, we also specifically also deal with some aspects of deceptive design that you find in the financial ecosystem. So again, combination of, and I say, I mean, I also extended the conversation to how some product safety laws will also have a big impact, and even competition. Because again, competition is about creating fair markets. And if in a way you already have dominant position in the market, and then you use design to either lock people in where they can't live, and they become so reliant on a product, that can easily be a violation, something that can be tied to things like an abuse of dominant position. So again, this touches on critical aspect of so many laws. Again, it's just about how hard and how willing we are to mark the problems, document the problems, map the problems, identify the problems, map the problems, document the problems, and then map it to the respective framework. And then we'll deal with it that way. Regulators, as they are currently, can't say they are powerless to address, to accept the different manifestation of deceptive design. The question is if the problem is well understood enough, if the problem is well documented enough, are we documenting our local examples? Because there are examples you probably find in Europe, you probably find in the US, and they are not sort of examples that are contextual to what you find in different African countries. So are we documenting the local examples that we're seeing as well? I mean, we've done decent work trying to map and document some of these things, but more work needs to be done. But beyond documenting, we also need to map these problems to the responsible framework and then engage with regulators to get things on cracking. We tried in the past with the Federal Consumer Protection Authority. We did a whole policy hackathon specifically on deceptive design a couple of years ago as well, and we threw it to everyone in Africa. So these are like some of the things that I think might probably help us first in understanding the problem, but also in a way to deal with the problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ridwan. So it's not about explicit law guiding deceptive design. It's about combination of different laws that actually address this societal issue. So my next question will be about everyday users, right? And this is from Mr. Samuel. So not everyone online has the same level of digital literacy. We have vulnerable groups, the children, the elderly, and the people that the middle group here. So how can consumers, especially these vulnerable groups, most especially the children, right, be better equipped to recognize and resist manipulative design tactics, right? Going to like child online protection right now. So how can consumers, especially children, I'm more particular about them now, be better equipped to recognize and resist manipulative design tactics? Because, for example, right, a 10-year-old guy will just pick his phone, want to play a game, and the game is telling you, oh, 100,000 for 2 more points, 2 more bonuses, and these are in-app purchases. Just click yes, 1 million is gone. Then the mother comes crying, hey, how did it happen? So how can consumers like this in the vulnerable group be better equipped to recognize these design tactics and parental guidance too? Mr. Samuel.
Yeah, good question. I have a 3 years old, and I understand what it means to pick up, for him to pick up your phone and try, and they're very explorative. They want to click on everything. But I think something I've found out from a product standpoint that has been helpful is that from a product point, it's good to think about the user who is using that product and create restrictions around those areas. And I'll give some examples I've seen, which has been very helpful. In most children apps, you notice that every time there's an action that's going to take you outside of the platform, they always request that you give an elderly person. And when they give what pops out is going to be maybe a mathematical equation that they believe that is a child cannot solve, and it's only an adult can able to solve that. I feel those are some very good guardrails that needs to be put in product, especially for kids. And also the responsibility is also on the adults. And absolutely, I'm so keen on adults putting a lot of guardrails for their kids, from the internet service provider from that from provider aspect, from controlling on the device aspect, is I feel that responsibility on other ones. People who understand the challenge that having kids on the internet will cause to put all of those things in place. And so, as I said, from a product perspective, there's role for us to play when designing product. We need to look at who are our target audience and look at what is key to this audience and what are the ways for us to protect this audience. And something that is also very helpful from a product perspective is that you want to always test your product with your audience. I think that cannot be overemphasized. There's this book that talks about designing everyday product. I think it's by Norman also that said that it talked about just testing your product with at least 3 of your users. You can start uncovering some of the key, not just usability problems, but also problems that are about deceptive design, where people are looking out for things or going beyond what that product has been designed to do. So from a product point, we have that responsibility on us to design products that are safe for the audience we are designing for, especially for kids. And I know that the government too are also playing a huge role. Even in places like here in the UK, you find government putting a lot of guidelines on internet that kids cannot access some certain site. They need to provide some information before they can access the site. So, and the government is putting that restriction on those companies to make sure they put those guidelines in place. There's currently an EA, so that's called European Accessibility Act, that also is providing more information for organizations to put in more accessibilities in their product. And why this is necessary is because of the vulnerable ones. Because I feel the government and the society is here to provide controls and to help the vulnerable ones among us in the society. So the responsibility is on the government, responsibility is on organization, responsibility is also on for kids, it's on parents, and for the learned ones among us to provide controls and to provide more structures for those who might fall into some of these pitfalls.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. Richard, do you want to chime in? If not, the question will be about general users, right? Practical solutions. Or first thing first, why should I care about deceptive design or manipulative design or persuasive design as a general user, right? Just want to get things done. What do I stand to lose if I care about this deceptive design? Like, what am I to lose if I don't care, right? The question is, if I don't care, what do I lose? And if I care, what do I gain? I think we need to know that too. Rachel, can you jump on it?
Okay. So first, I think it's everybody's duties. Designers, UX designers, web developers, policy makers, users, all of us, we have a duty to understand what persuasive design is and what manipulative design is. So we need to recognize what deceptive design is. I had said earlier that we have found a way to, because sometimes we don't recognize what deceptive design is. So we have actually found a way to live and we just find options out instead of actually calling the right people into order. So I'll start like this. For a designer, first thing is we have a responsibility to the user to make sure that whatever design we are putting out there is something that does not make them feel trapped or feel guilt or something they don't want to do. It should be clear enough for them to say, okay, it's something I want to do and something I don't want to do. And also we have responsibility to the regulation of the country, more like talking the aspect of data protection. I mean, we are putting our data out there for you. You should respect the fact that someone is putting down their data. You should respect how they are being used. And for every other person too, you know that you are putting, you have digital footprints all around. We are making use of all of these things. That's why you should understand when there is deceptive design somewhere. You don't want to put your information where you should not put. You don't want to accept cookies that are not necessary, cookies that you don't need. You need to know the right apps to use. Okay, which apps have the right privacy agreements or not. So you should be able to know all of those things. That's one of the reasons why you should know it. If you don't know it, it affects you. You put your information out there, someone makes use of your information in the wrong manner. So that's why you get someone making some phone calls. Maybe they got your number somewhere or your details somewhere, and you just begin to see very funny messages on your devices. So, and these things happen because you have somewhere click on a deceptive design without knowing, and that's why we should know. I think another thing that we need to also make use of is we should have more people advocating about these things, because learned people, they have idea of these things, but there are some people that don't even have idea of what these things may be, which includes the kids that you mentioned earlier, and Mr. Samuel had already explained some things about it. So they don't know these things. We should have maybe we are able to advocate online, have people come around, NGOs, they talk about all of these things. Then it will bring the designers, DX researchers, and everybody back to the right track to say we are designing for the users, and we are not, our intent alone is not for the businesses to like make more money or to gain more growth, but we are putting the users in mind, because it is the user's experience that we need to know while we are making our solutions for the users. So we need to put whatever they have in mind into plan where we are making all of these things. So that's what I would say about that.
Thank you, Richard. Ridwan, as an extension to what Richard has said, can you just spell out the consequences for these techniques on both the designers and the users? Like the consequences on the users now coming in the place of what am I losing? Why should I care? Why should I bother? And on the designers themselves, the consequences on the business if you are doing these techniques, if you are making use of these patterns. Ridwan.
Okay. I mean, I know that I can see I can see a question about talking about advertisement framework, and I think yes, that's very important. So if you look at a lot of central banks within their consumer protection framework or responsible business framework, they typically also have some lines that include like guidelines around advertisements. So when it comes to advertisement, they typically say things around, aside not making misrepresentation, but also don't make misleading statements, which can also infer to mean could also lead to deceptive design. But generally, even look at the consumer protection framework in itself. Part of the principles that you also see is about misrepresentation, misleading, whether in advertisement or in a presentation, form or language or whatever framing it is. So yes, advertisement frameworks or laws that deal with advertisement or in a way have some sort of inflection, create some sort of obligation around making sure we don't make misleading statements or do things that could misrepresent whatever it is that we're trying to represent. That's one bit. Around what does it mean for a user? A user, when your autonomy gets taken away, it's a deep lodge, is a lot sometimes a lot of people are not able to come back from. We've had situations in the financial ecosystem where people have been trapped in debt cycle simply because they take up loans where there are no disclosure, and then you realize that things like interest rates are not computed per annum, they are computed per day, and you realize by the time at the maturity of the loan, they're probably paying more in terms of interest than they should be paying for the principal. So we have people who have been trapped in a terrible debt cycle simply because people misrepresented what design. They didn't try to do well from a transparency point of view to show people what they need to know to help them make really well-informed decisions. So that's one. Another big consequence for users is also the fact that Deceptive design typically erodes decisional autonomy, which means you're literally in control of, you're literally not in control of the quality of the decision you're making. Again, they are nudging you. You can nudge positively, but this is a negative brand of nudging. So, and it's sort of influence your decision making. So, which means your independence and your autonomy gets taken away, and whatever happens from there. Even things like bundling terms of use, bundling privacy notices, I'm using that as equivalent of consent to do everything and anything. It's also very predominant. And this, in a way, by forcing consent, by doubling the consent, by making sure consent in its true sense, its truest sense is not informed because of lack of information and lack of how you, and a terrible way you've presented it, stripping people of their autonomy. Another thing is also the fact that for people, the fact that quality of the product gets misrepresented or the quality of whatever it is they're signing up getting misrepresented can also be a problem. And I think the last thing I'll touch on is transparency and data sharing, which are also privacy points. Is the fact that for a lot of people, simply because you give more data, simply because that app has excessive permissions, more than the app needs to function, what's the business of the calculator with your location, where you're staying? So all of these things could become a problem where we have excessive data collection, unlawful data sharing, unauthorized data sharing, because you have no visibility into even where your data is and why the data has been collected. So we get all of these problems. And when you marry the problem about people being trapped in debt cycle, one of the biggest consequences again is it then become difficult to access credit because now your credit is reporting and your credit rating is terrible. So it has like a whole spillover effect. So for businesses, one primary risk is the chances that whatever nonsense you're doing by misrepresenting or using designs in that way could actually create legal issues. People could sue. People use the courtrooms. There are countries where a lot of people go to courts where they have culturally a very litigious society. So you have to deal with lawsuits. You have to deal with problems with the regulators. Once they find or crack it, or then understand the problem itself. I think for now everybody's still probably seek shield because the problem is not well understood enough. But it could also be a regulatory issue. And with regulatory issue, a single violation could have a consumer protection bit, could have competition bit, could have data protection bit. They're dealing with multiple fronts. So again, losses, reputational damage could also take a toll. But most importantly, if the intention is to get people's attention, or to get people trapped and locked in, when people figure out that that's what you're doing, that's when you also have an attrition. You have bounce rates, as they call it. So people will also leave because they just simply know that's what you do. So they simply stop using the service, which then becomes counterproductive. So I think those are like, some of the biggest concerns that typical. And then if you look at the cost of having to do all of that compared to whatever margins you're doing in the long term, at the end, it might probably not make a good financial decision. In the short run, you can win in the short run, but once people figure out what the problem is, and regulators also understand, and then come after such violation, in a more long term or a more mid-term strategy or sustainability approach, it then doesn't make sense. But
So thank you so much, Redwan. So audience can drop their questions now. We'll be taking them. But okay, I think this one is directed to Redwan. Please. Okay, I think you answered it already. Okay, you didn't. Please help dive into any advertising regulation on this deceptive messaging or deceptive design, right? So, Redwan, can you make sense out of that question? Give us an answer.
Yeah, I try to talk about it. There are a bunch of, there are countries who have advertisement regulation. I know Nigeria has one, but you also have advertisement framework in business responsible guidelines from sector regulators or even within consumer protection laws. And generally, one of the key principles you find in tenants here is your message has to be true. You can't misrepresent, you can't mislead. Which, of course, some of those principles or some of those key obligations under these advertisement frameworks also touches on or try to also deal and address with the problem of deceptive design. Again, deceptive design is not a policy problem that you say there are no existing framework to deal with. So which is why, personally, I find it incredibly funny when I see people say, oh, we need a specific framework for problems. Because already they are like touch points. We just need to make sense of it and map it to the appropriate framework. And of course, documents. So yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Thank you. Samuel, do you have anything to chime in this?
So what's the question, Gabe?
The question is advertising, right? Probably
Yeah.
design advertising. Any regulations and
No, that was breaking, sorry.
can you hear me better now?
Yeah, better.
Okay, yeah. So the question is about advertising, advertisement, basically marketing and all. So the person
Yeah.
asks about the regulations surrounding this deceptive design around advertising or ethical considerations for designers. Let me put it that way for you. Around advertising of products. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is where regulatory bodies need to come in. I think solely because this is businesses throwing out the informations out there, and informations are going out there to get people to buy into their product, into their service. I think there should be regulations. I believe there should be regulations around those aspects, so that there are the things that it should people should be able to have in advertising and should not have in advertising. And it needs to be clear around what the purpose is. And if advertising is geared towards gathering people's data, it has to also be clear. Obviously, there's the GDPR rule guidelines that talks about how information should be processed, how information should be collected, and the sort of control you give to user, and how when you're collecting this information, they have to also consent to, especially when they are more personal information, they have to consent to that aspect. So that's where I feel regulatory bodies need to come in to put put structures into all of this. But from a design point, from a design product point, obviously, and it just boils down to all we're talking about in this conversation is that when there are business goals, where there are business needs, where there are marketing goals, there has to be that balance of the user has to come at the forefront of everything we're doing. This is for the user and what we expect them to achieve by doing that has to be true. So when it's false is when there's a problem. When that is true, then I think we're in that same line of being ethical in what we're doing. And if you're collecting any information, this information needs to go through the same guidelines that have been set by regulatory bodies and how they should process data. You don't just want to get people's data and store and use for purposes that is not clearly defined in your advertisement or in your in the platform you're in when they signed up. And when they sign up for something, the purpose of that data should be used clearly for that. And when you're going outside of those purposes which they've signed in, there needs to be another consent that needs to be sent for them to accept that, yeah, are you fine if it's used for this other purpose? I think why this becomes normal in senior clients like US, UK, and all is because these structures are put into their system. You go above it, there are laws and there are fines that can come for you and can come for the business itself. I talked about the EA law that puts a accessibility needs that every company in the UK at a certain level, not just private, both private and public, needs to go through those accessibility guides. And they're not just visual guides. Obviously, we have the basic visual guide that will follow the WCAG guideline of accessibility. Colors has to be accessible, text has to be accessible. But we're going beyond that to talk about even development, how the site should respond and feel. How when you click a button, what should be that response? The next point has to be defined, not take people beyond that into other things that they've not really planned to do. So there, and also things like also obviously we can say accessibility is for people who need accessibility needs, but there are times where it's beyond that. It's even we humans who there are times we are just in a situation where we need more accessibility, like reading a text out. You think that's for someone who doesn't have an eye, who needs it for hearing what he can't see. But there are times that you're on the move and you just want to hear something. And that's where all of these accessibility guidelines and everything comes in to help give not just those who needs it, but even those who doesn't need it. So in summary is that, yes, I feel there should be regulatives around all of these advertisements, especially when we are putting things out there, because that will put businesses in check, that will put organizations in check, because it's almost normal for companies to want to be greedy to get more information, more revenue, and they go beyond the boundaries of ethics. So that's where I think bigger bodies beyond them needs to call those things to check, and there should be also clear penalties and fines to that. That's what businesses and organizations here most times. They don't want to lose money, so when there are guidelines around that, they try to act on
it. Someone. I'm not sure we have any more questions. The question we have here, Ridwan and yourself has done justice to that already. So as final reflection, right, looking forward, starting from Rachel, what does ethical user-centered design look like? In a one-line sentence, what is the single most important step forward building the user-centered digital design? So what does it look like, and how can we achieve it? As a final comment, starting from the chair, then we go on, then Mr. Samuel.
Okay. For in the aspect of ethics, I would say that to practice making ethical designs for users, it's about us shifting from growth at all costs to growth with integrity. We are making designs for persuasion and not for manipulation, because informed consent is very real. Then we need to prioritize the users. We need to prioritize the users, and also for us to gain more trust in the businesses. The businesses has to gain more trust and not trick people into entry into their business. So yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. Good one.
For me, I think we need to build capacity, and we need to bring capacity building closer to people. We talk a lot about the design community, and thankfully we have Sam and Rachel here. Beyond people learning, and now these days also, because design has also become so accessible. In the past, it's kind of tricky. Now with simple AI prompts, you simply can create anything and anything. So what are we doing to actually let people know about the ethics of what design should look like? What is ethically permissible? What is, and now, it's not easier. I mean, it's more difficult to even say in a way to regulate what that would look like. But I think in any event, there's a thing that it makes people where they are, and you speak to people in a way they can understand. So I think we need to build capacity in such a way that people designing, around the whole spectrum of the ecosystem, also even for regulators to even understand that this is actually a problem and that they have no excuse not to deal with it. So that's something I think we need to do super well at. If it means using visualization to let people know, creating like a playbook to know what's good, what's not good, we need to do these things. If it means storifying things such that, a lot of people like storytelling, some people are visual people, but in a way that we can bring this message closer to people and we can make sense of it. That's definitely what we have to do. And on the regulatory side, key thing is first, we need to we need to build capacity for the regulators to make sense of it as a problem, to know it's a problem, and that they have the existing powers to actually deal with the problem. But it's not just dealing with the problem, action is also first maybe commissioning a research to even show their own insight on how they understand the problem, or doing a public consultation, have people like Sam, have people like Richard come speak and show and make sense of this problem before they go, trying to regulate some policy prototyping, all of this experimentation where you actually learn from the ecosystem before you take a policy reaction, I think would be immensely useful. And the last side is when it comes to our laws, I think laws are okay. Those that need amendments, but please, they're the idea of trying to have a specific framework for this kind of problem. It's just one of many problems that technology will raise, the technology, because even in the traditional ecosystem without tech being built on it, deceptive design have always existed with us. I talk about this, I talked about the maybe the experience in the park is not a design problem, But even in the days of newspaper adverts, we still had things like this, where people say things that are untrue in advertisements. So problem have existed long before, and technology as a layer to accentuate the problem doesn't mean we need a specific layer for it. Thanks.
Good one. Mr. Samuel.
Yeah, I think valid point from Rachel already one. I'll talk from three. I'll just summarize it to three key things. Obviously, we said user-centered. So the user should be the center of every decision. When request comes in, we should always think about how will the user feel after taking an action like this. And users cannot be, especially based on the brand, maybe they can be deceived multiple times with different ways. But if a brand deceives the user once, they will not want to go around that route anymore. So if the business goal is to retain customer and grow their audience, it should not be a quick win. It should be something progressive, because building brand loyalty takes time. So if you build your brand loyalty, if you want to build brand loyalty, then you need to forsake the quick push to revenue and get everything out. So I think that's one thing. The second thing I'll talk about is testing design. I come from in the product world, most times people just roll out products, designs, anything without actually testing users, and they are surprised that some things don't work as they expect. So beyond just testing usability, I feel we should start testing for deceptiveness in design. When you test users, if either is a moderated test or not moderated test, when you start seeing resistance, I've come through that in most of my testing phases, that you see resistance, and by the time you nudge further, you can see that why they're resisting. And it's as simple as just putting in some informations at every screen where you think users are going to, where you're collecting information. You want to ask questions, why are we collecting this information? Let users be able to understand why you're collecting that information, what you're doing with that information at very key place in your user journey or in your entry point or any of that process that it might be, either in your physical or traditional medium. And thirdly is regulation. I think Ridwan has done justice in talking about how regulatory bodies should come in this part, because they are I feel that's like the final call. If business jumps, product manager, designer, developer, anyone, they will not come through the regulatory body. They have that if not vector power to curb everything that comes through the system itself. And yeah, I think those are the 3 points. First one, as I said, is that we should make user-centered. The second one is that test design, test not just for usability, let us test for deceptiveness in design. When users are not receptive to take action, I want to know why, and put those reasons and make it easy in our journey. And thirdly, we can't speak enough about regulatory bodies, because they control not just the digital, even beyond the digital space, and those things are needed.
Thank you so much. Retreating what Rachel said persuasion and not manipulation, right? So thank you so much to our panelists, Mr. Samuel, Rachel, and Ridwan, and to everyone in the audience for engaging with today's discussion. Your presence adds so much significance to this gathering, and we thank you all. Like I said earlier at the early stage of the call, IFCOS Point is a monthly webinar. So come next month, September, the last Friday of the month, another Power Pack session will be happening. And when the rollout is out, please do where to register. And if you have further questions too, please, you can contact anybody at Tech Hive, and we provide guidance and a full solution to you. And also, this recording will be shared. It will be uploaded on our YouTube page, so you can always go back to it, watch. And if you want to connect with any of the speakers, I think you can find them on LinkedIn, Ridwan, Rachel, and myself too, and anybody. But thank you for coming. Thank you for making your time for us. On behalf of Tech Hive Advisory, I will say bye-bye and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Summer.
Yeah.